Okay. Was there any proposed language? I mean, just get something to me by the break, and I can insert it into the instructions that I have so that we can take a look at it in context.
Okay.
I mean, I can add the language if you'd like. All right, Mrs. Harper. All rise for the jury. All right, you may be seated, ladies and gentlemen. All right, good afternoon. Okay, at this time we will continue with the defendant's mitigation evidence. You may call your next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. We will call Deborah Pardon.
Swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth, that you shall answer unto God under the pain and penalties of perjury. And it's important that you keep your voice up so that the ladies and gentlemen of the jury can hear. All right, just pull up a little closer to the microphone. And if you would, for the record, state your name, spelling your last.
Deborah Pardon, P-A-R-D-O-N.
Thank you. You may inquire.
Thank you. Are you okay?
Yes.
Would you please tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury how you know Anthony Pardon?
He's my brother.
Younger or older?
Younger.
And you and he grew up in this, did you and he grow up in the same household?
Yes.
Tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what it was like growing up in your household.
Dysfunctional. Drugs, alcohol, bunch of chaos, bunch of beatings.
Tell the jury, who is Loretta Pardon?
She's my mother.
And what is the relationship like between you and your mother?
Still dysfunctional. My mother wasn't really there as I was growing up. She always left and left us all alone. I just needed some guidance. We just needed some guidance in the household. We never had it.
Do you know or do you remember, did your mom go to your school events?
No,
Were you made to do homework?
no,
Did you feel loved by your mom?
no.
Why or why not?
I don't even remember us as kids being told they loved us, giving us hugs. We just got beat all the time.
I think you indicated, you said your mom left all the time.
Yes.
Do you know where she went?
After a while, it didn't even matter.
Do you recall, when you were a child, what would have been the longest period of time that she was ever gone for?
Maybe 2 or 3 years.
And during that 2 or 3 years, who did you live with?
Her dad, or our father. We stayed with my grandmother. We stayed with our aunts. My brothers, some of them went to, what do you call that? We go through some different families, forgot what you call it, wherever.
Was there ever a time when you lived with your mother and not your father?
Yes.
And what was that like?
Dysfunctional, learning how to do bad things or not the right thing.
And what type of bad things did you learn how to do?
Me,
Yes.
just how to get in trouble.
Can you give us something specific when you say get in trouble or do bad things?
Well, as far as the boys, they got the Social Security checks. If you couldn't get a Social Security check or something, you know. As far as me, I just learned how to write checks, use credit cards. That's what it was.
Did you move around a lot when you were living with your mom?
Every 6 months.
How many brothers and sisters do you have?
I have 4 brothers and one stepsister. Her name's Cheryl Jack.
Is Cheryl your stepsister?
Yeah, we have the same mom but not different dads.
Okay. And has any of your siblings done well in life?
All of us is dysfunctional.
And when you say
All of us been to prison.
I'm sorry, you
except-
said all of,
All of us been to prison. Out of 6 of us, 5 of us been in prison.
what about drug use?
All of us have used drugs. All of us have done alcohol. All of it.
What about education?
I'm the only one graduated. I did do that.
And where did you graduate from?
Lyndon McKinley.
What about as a parent? Would you consider yourself a good mother?
I failed my son too in so many ways because I didn't have the guidance to know how to be a mother.
Was there ever a point you turned to drugs?
Oh yes, most of my life. I started drugs when I was 25 to run away from the pain. I'd have been in prison twice. I've done a 5 to 10 once, came home, tried to get my life back, relapsed again. Still don't have the guidance from a mother.
I think, and you and I met and we've talked on several occasions. Do you remember telling me that your mom ruins the lives of all those involved with her?
Yes.
And what did you mean by that when you say she ruins the lives of everybody involved with her?
Back then, and maybe still now, but back then, if you didn't go to school, she didn't know if you went to school or not. She didn't even get up to check. She don't raise her kids, grandkids. Ain't nobody made it out of nothing. I left. Everybody, they graduate, don't go to school. You don't even know if they're in the house or not.
Did you have any structure growing up?
No. What is that?
I think you also used the term chaos and fighting. What did you mean by that? When you told me there was a lot of chaos and fighting.
Chaos, You know, my dad, he wasn't the best person in the world. He would beat my brother, so me and him ran away one time. There was a lot of chaos, alcohol, fighting, all through our lives.
When you say your dad beat you, how did he beat you?
Pool stick, golf club, whatever he can get. But Tony got beat the worst all the time. I just didn't beat him the worst.
When your mom would leave, do you know where she went?
After a while, it really didn't even matter no more.
Your Honor, can I take 1 second?
You may.
Or do you know if your father was an alcoholic?
Yes,
And did you know what to expect day to day
yes,
in your household?
yes.
And what was that?
Beatings when he drank.
And do you know who Albert Bohannon is?
Yes.
Who is Albert Bohannon?
Albert Bohannon was my mom's boyfriend that provided a household and shelter for us all.
Okay. So, when was this that he provided the shelter for everyone?
Oh, we were young.
Pardon me?
My mom met him, I think I was still in elementary school.
Okay,
We were in elementary school,
okay.
because that was a part of she leaving.
That was a part of her leaving, you said?
Yes,
Okay. So would she come back? Or did she get with him and take you guys and stay gone?
got with him, took us with her,
And you stayed gone?
and we stayed gone.
Okay.
And then we still moved pillow to post every 6 months.
So in that 2-year period that your mom left, do you know if she was with Mr. Bohannon?
Yeah,
And so where were you guys?
first we was with our dad. Then we ended up running away.
Did you ever see your dad beat your mom?
Yes.
And I think when you and I were talking, I think that you indicated to me that you could understand why he beat your mom. Is that right?
I could understand why.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I said it.
Okay. And tell the jury, why do you?
I said it because any time you give her all the money to pay the bills, you never pay the bills. We be in the dark. Then you provide another household somewhere else and leave us. I understood why he did it. It wasn't right, but I understood why.
Okay. Thank you. I have nothing further.
Thank you, Ms. Dixon. Cross-examination.
Good afternoon, Deborah.
Hi, good afternoon.
We met before, right?
Yes, ma'am.
I wasn't too mean to you then, was I?
No, you wasn't.
All right, I have some questions for you today. If I ask you something and you're not sure what I'm asking, just let me know. I'm not trying to trick you, okay? I want to start with where you are now, right? So you have a job,
I have a job,
okay? You're raising your grandkids.
raising 2 of my grandkids.
You have a home.
I have a home.
Actually, the home that we saw when the police came and took pictures, that's your home, right?
My home, yes.
So, and you were letting your brother stay with you when he got arrested.
Yes, well, yes,
Just so the jury knows, the pictures of the house we saw, that's your house.
yes,
Right? And you have 2 of your grandkids living with you?
yes.
How old are they?
Now they're 8 and Josiah's 5.
Okay. And your mom lives with you?
No,
No. Did she live with you for a little bit?
yes,
You helped take care of her?
yes,
Okay. And I think when we've been here at court, a couple of your brothers have come to court.
yes.
Which brothers came to court?
That's Eric, which we call him Brian. He's under me. And then there's Bobby,
Okay.
and he's under,
So, you know what? Let's do this to help us understand. Cheryl's the oldest.
yeah,
Then you?
yes. Then Brian, Eric Parton. Then
Okay.
Tony.
Okay.
No, then Tony. Then Bobby.
Okay.
Then Michael.
Okay. And how much older than Tony are you?
3 or 4 years.
3 or 4 years? Okay. I won't make you do the math. Okay.
I'll
so
be 58 this year.
I didn't make you say that. You said
Oh,
that.
okay.
Okay. Okay. So I want to kind of understand the timeline a little bit here. You said that your mom was gone for a couple years, right?
Yes.
And during that period of time, you lived with your dad.
Yeah.
And I think you had told Miss Dixon before that at least when you were with your dad, you had things like food, utilities, and you stayed in the same house, right?
Yes, we did have that.
Okay. Now, if I understood you right, your mom met was with Mr. Bohannon, Albert, is that his name? Did I get
Yes.
that right? Albert? When you were still in elementary school.
Well, I might have been, and I take that back. I might have been in junior high.
Okay, we'll say junior high. So junior high, you mean 6th, 7th, 8th grade.
Yes.
And that's when you moved in with them.
Yes.
And so at that point, let's say 6th, 7th, 8th grade, that means that Tony was in 3rd, 4th, or 5th grade.
Probably. No. When Mom met Cannon, I was in junior high when she met him.
Okay. And that's when you
Met
moved.
him. And then, yeah, because she met him through her friend, and we was going to elementary. No, I was in junior high.
Okay. And that would have meant that Tony was in elementary school.
Yeah, he was in elementary.
He was still pretty young when you guys moved in with Albert.
Yeah.
And you said that you still moved a lot, but at least Albert gave you some stability, right?
Yes.
And in fact, Albert stayed in your lives for a long time, didn't he?
He stayed in their lives for a long time. I ended up going to my grandmother. Yes.
You went to your grandmother's. And your grandmother took good care of you?
Yes.
And all the kids had access to your grandmother, right? She had a stable household.
It was alcohol there too.
Okay. But you went and stayed there.
Mm-hmm.
And you said Albert stayed in the other kids' lives for a long time, right?
Yeah, he did.
He stayed in your lives for so long that he wrote a letter, or not wrote a letter, but he was willing to give Tony a job if he got out of prison, right?
Yes.
What did Albert do for a living?
He owned his own business as a Cannon. I called him Cannon. Cannon owned his own business as a plumber, and he worked for the city.
I couldn't remember. I knew it was a trade, right? So plumbing, right?
Yes.
And so even after Tony went to prison, so Tony's 17, 18, 19, 20, Albert Cannon was still in your mom's life, right?
Yes.
And willing to help out Tony even then.
Well, willing to help out. Yes.
Okay. And You and your brothers specifically, you guys support each other, right?
Yes.
So you have each other as resources, right?
Yes.
In fact, you've been very supportive of Tony throughout this whole process, haven't you?
Yes.
You've talked to him a lot, right?
Yes.
You visited him a lot.
Yes.
He's your brother.
He's my brother.
Right, and you love him, right? Okay. I think it's fair to say, though, that Tony can be manipulative, right?
I'm not going to agree with that.
Okay. Do you remember having a conversation with me about having to come in and testify?
Oh, yes.
And part of that conversation was some of the stuff that Tony had said to you, right?
Yes.
This
Yes.
part's hard, right?
Yes.
Okay. Tony made you think it was his fault or your fault that he was here, right?
No, no.
Hold on.
No, I'm not going to agree
Hold
with
on 1
that.
second. Hold on 1 second. Okay, please approach.
No.
Okay, hold on. Don't say anything at this point. Excuse us, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. The objection sustained. Rephrase.
Different way, Deborah. When we talked, when you and I talked, you were made to feel that you using the credit card is what got Tony in trouble, right?
Yeah, I was feeling like that, yes.
Okay. And some of that came from the things that Tony had said to you, correct?
I'm going to disagree with that, too. I felt like that on my own. I felt like that on my own once I found out that credit card was that girl's. And I took it upon myself to feel like I put it all on me. Now, I had the right to use the card or leave the card alone. I chose to use it myself. Mm-hmm. So once I found out that girl was dead, I felt like it was my fault. And I carried that for a while. Didn't nobody make me feel like that. I felt like that on my own.
After you had used it, you talked to Tony, right?
Yeah.
You talked to Tony about using the credit card, right?
Yes.
You talked to Tony about court coming up, right?
Say that again.
You talked to him when court was coming up, when you were getting ready to testify, right?
Yes.
He was real mad at you that you were going to testify, right?
I don't know why. I don't know why he was mad at me.
Because
He didn't tell me he was mad at me.
At some point, didn't you stop talking to him?
No. I don't know where you got that from. No, ma'am.
All right. But when we had a conversation, I had to tell you that this wasn't your fault. Isn't that correct?
Yes, you also told me that.
Okay. All right. Could I have
And
Could I have one moment, Your Honor, please?
You may.
Thank you. Nothing further.
Thank you, Ms. Roush. Redirect.
Deborah, what's your date of birth?
11/21/1962.
Do you know what Anthony's date of birth is?
He's 11/29. I think he's 65 or 66.
And do you know the dates of birth of any of your other siblings?
One's 11/6/63. One's June the 30th, 66. Who did I forget?
I think you've got,
One's May the 14th, Bobby. He May the 14th.
okay. And I know you left off the years, but do you know, are you guys basically a year apart?
Yes,
Okay. And so is Cheryl a year older than you?
yes.
Are you a year older than Brian?
Yes, me and Brian stay the same age for 15 days, then I'll turn.
That close, right?
Yes,
And so Brian is only a year older than Anthony.
yes,
Okay. And so when you were in junior high school, right? And you believe you were living with Mr. Bohannon, you said, when you were in junior high school?
yeah.
Okay. And was there ever a time that your mom went to prison?
Yes,
And she would not have been living with Mr. Bohannon when she was in prison?
correct.
And do you know how old you were the first time your mom went to prison?
I can't remember. I might have been in my 20s or 30s.
Okay. And do you remember how old you were when the second time your mom went to prison?
The second time my mom went to prison, I was there.
You were there with her?
Yes,
Okay. Was there ever a time when everybody was in prison at the same time?
yes,
Okay. And you would not have been living with Mr. Bohannon then?
No.
Okay. And do you recall, was there ever a time where Anthony was sent to live in a group home?
yes.
And do you know how old Anthony was when he went to live in the group home?
I think he might have been, and I'm guessing, 10, 11.
And he was not with Mr. Bohannon then,
No.
was he? Thank you. I have nothing further.
Thank you. Ms. Dixon, recross?
No, thank you, Your
All right. Ms. Hart, you can step down.
Thank you, sir.
Defendant may call this next witness. Good afternoon. All right, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, as you shall answer unto God or under the pains and penalties of perjury?
I do.
Okay, you may be seated. That is a microphone that's right in front of you.
Okay,
It's important that you speak up loud enough so that the ladies and gentlemen of the jury can hear.
okay.
Okay, for the record, if you please state your name, spelling your last.
Loretta M. Pardon, Pardon.
Thank you. You may inquire.
Good afternoon, Ms. Pardon.
Hi.
You and I met on Friday, was it?
Yes,
Okay. And let me ask you, what is your relationship to Anthony Pardon?
I'm his mother.
Okay. And who is his father?
His father was Eric K. Pardon. He's deceased.
Okay. Do you remember how long ago he died?
He died back in 2010.
Okay. And tell us, who is Albert Bohannon?
He was my friend for 27 years.
Just a friend?
Yeah, we were never married, because I never married, and he had a wife, but he was my friend, and he stayed with me a lot of the times.
Okay. Did you ever leave your children to go live with him?
With their father?
With Mr. Bohannon?
No.
Okay. So, tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what you believe or how you believe you failed Anthony as a mother.
Well, I probably could have went to more things at his school. I probably should have got him tested way before I did.
Can I stop you and ask you, when did you get him tested?
I think he was like 8.
And where did you take him?
The school tested him.
Okay, so you didn't take him at 8, the school tested him.
No, I asked the school
You asked the school to test him. Why did you ask the school to test him when he was 8?
because he was having some behavior problems,
What kind of behavior problems?
getting into fights and stuff like that.
So, did Anthony have problems before he was 8?
Yes,
Okay. When did you first notice problems that Anthony was having?
I say when he went to kindergarten.
And what kind of problems was he having in kindergarten?
His kindergarten teacher called me and said he pulled the chair out from under her, and she fell. So he couldn't go to school but an hour after everybody else got in school. I couldn't take him for an hour after they got in class, so he went from 10 to 11. I had to go back and pick him up.
For the rest of the day?
Yes.
Did that pose any difficulties for you?
Yes, because I had 6 of them. There's 2 up under Tony, 2 little ones under Tony.
Well, let me ask you, did you, other than, and I know you work as a mother and a homemaker, did you have a job outside the home?
Yes.
Where did you work? And I'm talking about during this time, this kindergarten time. Where did you work?
Oh, his kindergarten time, I didn't work.
Okay. You were a wife and a homemaker?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So when he was in kindergarten, you said you first started seeing these problems.
Mm-hmm.
But you waited until...
Yes, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Just a yes or no, please.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
And I think you already said you waited until well, let me ask you, why did you wait until he was 8? Is that about 3 years? Why did you wait?
Because I have 4 boys and 2 girls. And the other kids was getting into stuff too, getting in fights and stuff. So I just figured that's what boys do.
Okay. Did you ever witness Anthony being beat by his father?
Yes.
When was the first time you witnessed him being beat by his father?
When he got put out of kindergarten,
And how old would he have been?
he was 5.
Did you see bruises on him from that beating?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
And what did you do?
Well, I talked to his dad, and I tried to hug and cuddle Anthony, but his dad wouldn't allow that. So I just kind of waited until his dad left, and then I told him, don't cry, and just hugged him and stuff, let him know I loved him.
Mm-hmm. And did his dad beat you as well?
Yes.
How often did he beat you?
My husband could walk in the house, and if I walked the wrong way or I had cooked something he didn't like, then I'd get beat.
When you say beat, how bad are you talking about?
I'm talking about black eyes, broken noses, busted lips, bruises, choking me. That's what I'm talking about. At one time, he beat me with a tar lugs wrench. That you take your tires off your thing. He beat me with that.
Did you have to go to the hospital? Did you go to the hospital?
Yes,
How long were you there?
about 5 days.
Did he ever beat you in front of your children?
Yes.
Did Anthony specifically ever see him beating you? Did Anthony ever see his father beating you?
Yes. Sometimes he would beat them first and then beat me.
How old were you, Mrs. Pardon, when you had your first child?
16,
And how old were you when you had your last child?
24.
So you had 6 kids.
Yes.
Mrs. Pardon, tell me, what is Anthony's favorite color?
You know what? I don't know.
Do you know what any of his favorite things to do are?
He likes to box.
Okay.
He can do a lot of stuff because he got education in the penitentiary. He's a licensed barber, he's a licensed plumber, and he's a licensed electrician.
Okay. Did Eric, your husband, drink alcohol?
Yes,
How often did he drink?
every day.
Do you remember a time, a beating that Anthony received when he was 6 years old?
Yes.
Tell us about that.
I don't quite remember why the beating took place because it's been so many years ago. But Anthony and my older boy, Eric, it's like their dad picked on them, whipped them all the time.
And did you see bruises on him that time when he was beat when he was 6?
Yes, ma'am.
And what did you do?
Well, I took him in the bathroom and I tried to clean him up. And I can't really remember.
Okay, all right. Did you ever beat Anthony?
Yeah, I whipped him a couple of times. I didn't beat him, I whipped him.
Okay. Did you ever shoot at him?
Yes, ma'am.
Tell us about that.
Well, the gun didn't go off. I didn't shoot it, but me and him got into a little dispute because he wanted to go somewhere and I said no. And so he went outside and picked up a brick. And he said, I'm going to break your windows out. And I went in the house and went upstairs and got my gun. And I said, go ahead. But they're going to find you just like this with that brick in your hand. And I pop. And he went out the fence and down the alley.
Now, there were times that you told me you would leave your children?
I got tired of the whippings and beatings and stuff. And I took my kids and I left. He went to the school and he got Anthony and Brian, my older boy, and Bobby and Michael, my two youngest boys, they hid. So he didn't get them. And I moved, Mr. Bohannon took me to a place, got us a motel suite. And so me and them two boys was there. When Eric, my oldest boy, caught pneumonia, by that time, Mr. Bohannon had got me an apartment in Delaware, and my mother told him where I was. And he came up to Delaware. And he caught me. And he pulled me in the car. I'm sorry.
That's okay, take your time.
He pulled me in the car and he took me up to, I don't know if it was Hoover Dam or where it was, I don't remember now. And he opened up the trunk of the car and he took that black thing out that you take the tire lugs off with, and he beat me till I guess I just went out.
Okay, so when you told us he beat you with a tire iron, would that have been the time?
When I was in the hospital, yes.
Okay. And when you were up in Delaware, were your kids with you when you were at the place in Delaware?
No.
And so when you were at the place in Delaware, where were your children?
He had come and got them all because I was in the hospital, and he got them.
Okay. What about, was there a period of approximately 2 years where you were gone, but your kids were with him?
That's when I was in Delaware.
Okay. So you were in Delaware, you had gotten away from him, but your kids were all with him?
Yes.
And you've been to Marysville twice.
Yep.
And do you know where your kids were when you were in Marysville?
Deborah and Cheryl was with my mother. And the three younger boys, Anthony, Brian, and Bobby, and Michael. I think Anthony was out in Franklin Village. And the other boys, I thought that they were with someone else, but they was with Pat and Ray Jones. And I thought Anthony was there, but he wasn't. He was in
Franklin Village.
He was in Franklin Village.
What is Franklin Village?
It's a school or a place for kids that's unruly
And do you know Judy Watson?
yes, that's my first cousin.
And tell us, was there an incident where you used her name to forge some checks?
Judy?
Yes.
No.
And she worked at a bank?
I don't believe I used. I know I got arrested for misuse of a credit card, and that was my niece.
So you used your niece's name?
Well, she asked me could stuff come to my house. And I told her, yeah. But then she came back and said, Jimmy, her husband, knew my address and knew where I lived, so I asked my girlfriend, Miss Addie B. Rocker, could it come to her house? And she said yes.
Well, did you know what you were doing was wrong?
Yeah.
Did you, back then, did you use drugs or did you drink?
No,
Or?
I don't smoke and I don't drink, and I've never used nobody's drugs.
Okay. And one of the things, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you told to me was that you were so good at what you did, you could be Al Capone's right-hand woman?
Yeah, I did say that.
And what do you mean by that?
That was when I was doing checks and credit cards and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And it was a thing about Al Capone on TV. And I said, ooh, I could have been his right-hand man.
And so were you proud of that?
No, but I was saying it around my family, and they all started laughing.
What is your relationship with your children like today?
My oldest daughter and I, we don't get along too good. But I love her, and nothing in this world I wouldn't do for her.
Why don't you and her get along?
Because she uses drugs, and she picks up things that you leave her laying around, she'll get you.
She's also made some accusations that you don't like. Is that fair?
What?
About Eric Pardon, who was not her biological father.
She made some what?
Accusations against Eric Pardon.
I don't know.
You don't know if she made accusations against Eric Pardon?
I heard, but I didn't see her say it, and I didn't
Because
see.
you told me about him, remember?
Well, I told you, but it was
What
what
did you
I
tell
heard.
me?
I told you that Cheryl made an accusation that her stepfather molested her.
Okay, and that was Eric Pardon, right?
That was Eric Pardon.
But you didn't believe her, did you?
No, because she was never left with, none of the girls was ever left with their dad by herself.
And do you remember when Anthony was sent to prison
Yes,
the first time?
yes,
How old was he?
excuse me.
Do you remember how old he was?
He was 15.
Okay. And did you go to court with him, for him, to be supportive?
No, ma'am, I didn't.
And is there a reason why?
The first reason why is because he was a minor, and I thought they would just send him to juvenile, and I'd go down there. But the next thing I knew, they waited until he got 16 and bound him over as an adult.
Okay. And so that's why you didn't go to court to support him?
Yep.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
You may.
I have what's been marked as Defendant's Exhibit 4M. Ms. Pardon, is that your signature?
Yes.
And just looking at that, can you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what that is?
It's a letter that I wrote to the parole board.
Okay, and directing your attention to page 3 of the letter. And I'm on this paragraph right here. Could you read that to the jury?
Right here?
Right here, yes, ma'am. You wrote that. Could you read that?
I felt my son, his family, social services, and yes, even the legal system.
So back then, you believed that all of these people had failed Anthony, including yourself.
Including myself.
And you still agree with that today?
I still agree with that today.
Can I take 1 minute, Your Honor?
You may.
Mrs. Parton, do you know, was Anthony ever prescribed any medication for his behavior?
When he was in the second grade, third grade, fourth grade, they put him on Ritalin.
And how long was he on that, do you know?
2.5 years. I took him off because he was like a zombie, and I just took him off.
Okay, so you did that, you took him off on your own? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yes,
And have you ever been diagnosed with any mental illnesses?
I've been diagnosed as bipolar and schizophrenic, but I ain't gonna, they said I want to kill myself. I'm not gonna kill myself. I'm gonna live to be 105.
Okay. Are you prescribed any medication for your illnesses?
Now,
Yes, ma'am.
yes,
What medications?
I take a heart medicine, blood thinner, blood pressure, anxiety, something for acid reflux, for my kidney, my left kidney, and I take a pill to help me sleep at night. And I take 2 other ones, but I can't remember. I take a lot of medicine.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dixon. Cross-examination.
No, thank you.
Ms. Parton, you can step down there.
Thank you.
Counsel, please approach. Excuse us, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go ahead and take our afternoon break at this time. If I can get you back in the jury room at 3:20, and we'll get started as close to that time as we can. Again, remember the admonitions that I've given you with respect to discussing this case among yourselves or with anyone else. All rise for the jury. See everyone back in about 20 minutes. Thank you.